I want to talk to you through this chat, maybe towards the end, about where to from here. What are the plans? And I know you're in the process of drafting some ideas around what to do with what the government is doing with boot camp, so the alternatives. But first of all, I just want to bring everyone kind of up to speed as to where we're at today. On Friday, there was the first official evaluation from government's youth boot camp was revealed. Amongst other things, the first official evaluation of the government boot camp said the military activities like marching are good for teenagers, but noted there was a lack of staff and Māori input. At the same time, Oranga Tamariki said alleged reoffending had occurred. The boot camp's primary goal is to cut reoffending. The agency gave no details on the alleged reoffending other than to tell RNZ it occurred after one or more of the boys left the residential phase and was released to the community, which gets followed up today with a story around the Prime Minister, where the Prime Minister says he's really comfortable with the public not knowing the reoffending rate for the Coalition's pilot boot camp program. And we go on to find out that it is understood to be 80%, although that number can't be confirmed. Now, I know that this is not just about, is it being successful? Not the reoffending, because kind of from the grassroots up, it's a bit of a shitty idea that most people have said isn't going to work. But love to get your thoughts on what we've heard in the last couple of days. And one of the biggest things, I couldn't find it today, but I saw a video with Karen Shaw yesterday saying that she wasn't going to speak to the individual cases of the boys. And then, of course, the news media brought out all those videos from a few months ago where she was speaking about the individual cases of the boys because it was good news. But now privacy can't speak about the individual boys, but good news would, potentially bad news wouldn't. So where are we at with this whole debacle, Tamatha? What's going on with the boot camps in the government?
Yeah, so at the moment, the boot camps bill is going through select committee. So we've had hearings about it over the last couple of weeks, which is just continues to unearth lots of new reasons as to why the boot camps are such a bad idea. But it's actually been quite helpful as well, because there's lots of other really bad things in that piece of legislation. So for people that aren't aware, there's this bill called the Responding to Youth Offending Bill that's going through Parliament. And obviously the kind of main thing that's getting all the attention is the boot camps. But there's actually lots of other really awful things in that bill. So there's this new criminal category called the Young Serious Offender label, which is going through. There's, this bill provides the police and third-party providers, whoever that is, the power to use force against children. There's, it legislates that kids that are in these boot camps are going to have to wear uniforms, like all sorts of really awful and backwards things for young people who have offended. So, yeah, it's just a shit show. So last week in the House, Karen Shaw said that the reason that she had to do this was because youth crime was at an all-time high, which she had to correct in the House today, because I wrote a letter to the Speaker and said that's not true. That's objectively not true. Youth crime has been decreasing for 40 years in our country. That's just not true. And for the Minister to get up and say that's her reason when it's not true. So she had to stand up and make a personal explanation today to apologise for misleading the House about something that's not true. So slowly you can see all of her reasons for setting up these cruel, inhumane experiments on young people are falling away.
I mean, I didn't hear the conversation. So what did she get wrong? Did she say that there's never been more crime, any more incidents of crime? Meaning, obviously, back in the day when the population was low, is it a per capita thing that she got wrong? How did that work?
So she got up and she said the reason that they are doing the boot camps, like to kind of paraphrase her answer.
Yep.
The reason that they're doing the boot camps is because youth crime is at an all-time high and somebody had to do something about it, which is just not true. Yeah. Our country youth crime has been decreasing. It's been on the decline. There was a spike during COVID lockdowns because, hey, look what happens when you remove young people's access to their schools, their communities, their sports, all of that stuff. That's what happens, So there was a spike during the COVID years, but after that, youth crime continued to decrease. I think there was like 454 ram raids and at the peak lockdown. The following year there was half, and now there's only a really small number. So there's like the sensationalization that is being maintained by our politicians and our media, who continue to catastrophize what is actually getting better and under control.
Chewie, jump in.
Usually, if someone makes a false statement, you would be able to call them a particular word.
There's a word.
Which I believe that you're not allowed to do in the house. I'm not in the house. Just saying, you say something that's false, that makes you a liar. There's no way that she couldn't have known that. She just thought she could get away with it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, she's the Minister of Children. She should know that the rates of children committing crime is reducing, But I don't think I'm not convinced that she reads anything that comes across her desk, because if she did, she would know that boot camps are a failure all over the world and here as well, which is why the army themselves wanted nothing to do with this experiment.
I mean, how do you square that circle? Like we knew that. We reported that. You guys knew that. You tried to tell them that. Everybody knows it. And I mean, like, how many times, Stu, have we said this government has an aversion to evidence? It's like they just won't look at it. I guess I'm asking you the impossible to explain why and how they do it. It's just so bizarre.
Yeah, it's pretty concerning. We had the Children's Commissioner come and talk to us about 2 weeks ago about this bill, and she said, they strongly so the independent body charged with monitoring the rights and safety and protection of children in our country came and said, you must not proceed with this bill. You cannot proceed. And she just sat there for 10 minutes and laid out every single reason why this bill and the boot camps in particular are so bad, and why they are just take us backwards. Because what I've learned over the last year that I didn't know before is that New Zealand had a really strong reputation for having a really good youth justice system. Like, we have tried things in our country that have worked. So setting up a youth court and also doing the family group conferences as a way to hold people accountable and to resolve the situations that have occurred are really successful and really innovative. And we, other countries would look to us for examples of how to treat young people who had offended. But now, it's just like this government wants to take us backwards. And because I've been digging for about a year now and continue to raise different information that I've found and things that I've heard from young people that have been in youth justice residences and their families, and nothing is ever enough for them to say, actually, let's stop this. And I think that's really concerning when you've got a government that is so committed to fulfilling a promise that they made in order to win votes before the rights of children to be safe from force used against them, to be protected and cared for. They're just completely throwing that out the window. And if they can do it to kids, they can do it to anybody. And I think that's what should scare people.
I think when it comes to Luxon being comfortable with us, which is great, I want to know his comfort levels on basically everything. Let's be honest. If the reoffending rates were good, we would hear about it.
Of course.
They would be singing this from the rooftops. You all said the boot camps wouldn't work. We've tuned out a whole bunch of kids now. They're on the right track. They're in the workforce. They're not reoffending. Model citizens. We did that. You didn't believe we could. Suck it. The fact that they're saying we don't have to tell you and the Prime Minister is comfortable with that tells me everything I need to know. It has not been good.
No.
And going into this,
Chewie,
they had really clear stats.
Just to fact check you, he's not comfortable. He's, quote,
really
comfortable.
Really comfortable.
He's
That
actually, quote, really comfortable.
He's on his favourite chair at home. He's got his stretchy pants on. The tie is probably hanging up somewhere. He's real comfortable with us. I think it's lovable. If that reoffending rate of 80% that people are talking about, not confirmed, but talking about it, that really closely matches all of the studies, all of the previous attempts at boot camps, the reoffending rate, low 70s, high 80s, in that bracket, every single time we try this again. But they said, no, it's different this time. We've looked at that. It's not going to be the same for our one. That's what makes it different. and it hasn't changed a damn thing. That's why they're not releasing it.
Yeah. And also it's like, you know, now the narrative has changed. You know, that Luxon spent like a good couple minutes in his Prime Minister statement at the start of this year talking about youth crime. You know, they want to sensationalize it even further to kind of create some kind of a public mandate for what they're doing, because they know what they're doing is messed up. And so like they continue to do that. And even Karen Shaw now, she's completely changed the way that she even talks about the boot camp bill. So now she gets up in the House and she says, I'm not going to give up on these young people. I refuse to give up on these young people. I'm like, they're not the problem, bro. You are. You are the problem, because you keep pursuing failed policy. You know what works. You've got some of the best experts around you warning you against your approach, and you continue to do it. It's literally insanity, just over and over and over again, but she's not willing to listen. And that's dangerous. Again, it's just dangerous.
I'm just writing down, you've just made our next t-shirt, Tamatha. You are the problem, bro. Tamatha. $55 coming to a store near you soon.
A couple of other thoughts, like Luxon promised that this would be, and we all, nobody fell for this, but he did say that this was going to be the most transparent government ever. We remember that, right? I didn't have a gas leak in my house or something like that. That was something he said. At what point do you turn around and you go, you know, words mean something, man? Like this is why people don't think much of politicians, because they get away with this shit constantly.
Yeah. Oh, the thing that I've realized about this government is they're sneaky with words, and they use words to weasel their way out of things that they promised to people during the election and even in government. And this is a perfect example. You know, when I was digging up information on the boot camps, I would send these written questions that we can write as MPs to ministers, and I'd say, how many children are in your boot camp pilot? You know, this is right in the beginning. And they said, there are no children in our boot camp pilot. A child is defined as someone that is, you know, this age and this age. I'm like, okay, whatever, young adult, whatever, like, just give me the answer. And then they'd be like, there are no boot camps, there are military style academies. And it's just like, just give us some information. Like, it doesn't matter how it's put. Answer the question. And right from that point, at the very beginning before the pilot even began, I was like, this is not going to be transparent, this is not going to be honest, and they're going to use every word in the dictionary that they can to weasel their way out of the fact that they're doing something really disgusting and awful, you know.
I've got a ponderance, and I'm wondering, both of you can have an opinion on this. To me, it feels like there's stupidity somewhere. Either this government is stupid because they think it's going to work, right? If we agree that this is a vote catch, right? But they think it's going to work anyway. But if they know it's not going to work, then they're treating the voter like they're stupid, because if the voter goes, it didn't work what you promised, the government's thinking that they're stupid enough to be able to push that past them because they got their headlines before the election. Now the outcome doesn't actually matter because they're treating the voters like they're stupid. Or is it something else?
I think they think that the public are idiots, and I've said that heaps of times. Like, I think they actually think that everyone is stupid, and that I think it comes back to that whole ethos that Luxon governs from, which is he treats New Zealanders like customers, and he thinks that they're stupid, and that he can have the right lines and the right headlines, and that will get him by. But it's not. He's not running a company. You know, he's running a country. And so it's like, yeah, I think they think people are stupid, which they're not. You know, they see people, they see them getting up on the TV being like, you know, we're here for growth and we're going to make jobs and be good for the economy. Meanwhile, everyone is losing their jobs. The mill in my hometown just got, like, part of its function just got shut down, 230 families without a job, you know, like they think people are stupid or ignorant to the reality that they're facing as a consequence of this government's decision. And it's really not demeaning. It's just like, it's really insulting to the intelligence of New Zealanders.
I think it's hilarious
I
when they accidentally say the quiet bit out loud. We're going to play this later on, but the Prime Minister said on breakfast this morning about all the Kiwis leaving. He blamed bad economic mismanagement for all the Kiwis leaving New Zealand, but I don't think he realised that we all think he's talking about himself. I think he was trying to blame the last lot. Yeah, he's correct, but he's just not quite sure why he's correct. Sorry, Chewie, I cut you off.
I was just going to say, look, I feel it's they're taking the New Zealand public for mugs, and the problem is it quite often works.
Yeah,
we quite often talk about these various policies that this government have put in of like, what problem are they trying to solve? Are they trying to solve having young offenders and putting them on the right track, like they say, or are they trying to solve the problem that they weren't in the government? And to do that, they need to be performatively tough on crime. They need to hit all those tough on crime markers that have all been proven not to solve the problem that they say it is, but have been proven to really solve the problem that they care about. I'm not in the government. People keep on falling for it. One of the things that we just got a light little bit of criticism from the chat. The annoying thing about this podcast, that's us, is that they read through the super chats after the guest has left.
No, I was just actually doing the exact opposite. I was looking in the super chats because there's a couple of questions for Tamatha in there, but I think we'll do that at the end. So over Red Rover, you can just call your jets.
We haven't missed it.
No.
We know we keep doing that. Don't want to keep doing it.
So let's do this then, Tamatha, if you're cool with that. I want to go to your Instagram. I think this is from yesterday, where you put up a post that says, just going to be straight up, there's never been an issue that has affected me more emotionally than our youth justice system and the rangatahi in it. I listen to days of submissions on the bootcamp bill or the ram raids bill, and I go home and bawl my eyes out. You go on in the post to say, I'm working on a policy piece right now that will outline what an alternative to boot camps and youth prisons could look like. Please tell us what your plans are.
Okay, so I don't want to talk about it too much because my plan is to develop it with rangatahi, especially those who might find themselves in a youth justice residence or come from a community or come from a place where the determinants of whether someone, commits a crime as a young person exists. So just want to kind of preface it with that first.
Yep, sure.
But the policy piece is basically, if you look at the kind of outcomes of these boot camps, right, they've got some super flimsy outcome where they're like, every young person that does a military style academy will come out with a bank account number and a license and all of these things, which you do not need to spend that much money. You do not need to spend that much money to support a young person to do those things. But anyway, what I want to show is there's this thing that is the quite kind of core focus of my mahi when you look at it collectively, and it's this like state care to prison pipeline that a lot of Māori, but a lot of people that are disabled, people who are poor end up in. And it's like they're born into poverty, they experience family violence or just abject poverty. In that case, they're uplifted from their families. They end up in the state care system. After that state care system, they end up in a youth justice residence. I think the stat is like 70% of young people in the youth justice residences have got had spent time within the state care system. They end up in the youth justice system where their criminality grows because of the environment that they're in. And then that leads to prison, time in and out of prison. And quite often that also leads to people joining gangs. And then it's just that repeated cycle of recidivism, incarceration, and it just goes on and on and on. So if that's the state care to prison pipeline, what does an alternative to that lifespan look like? And so I want to go right from the moment that the mother knows that she's having a baby, what kind of care and support does she need to make sure that when that baby comes into the world, they have all the support that they need? And then that child as a baby, what kind of supports do they need throughout their life in order to not fall into the system. And it's quite simple things. Like, one example is fetal alcohol spectrum disorder, right? That's not even acknowledged as a disability in this country. So kids who are born with fetal alcohol spectrum disorder, they get no support because it's not seen as a disability, despite the fact it impacts every aspect of their life, the way that they make decisions, the way that they process their emotions, the way that they interact with other people. They get no support for that. And then they go to school where they struggle to learn, they struggle to interact with others sometimes, quite often, and then they end up getting expelled from school, excluded from school, you know, and that's that pathway. And we know that because most people in prison, like 90% of people that are in prison or youth justice residences, have got a disability. So the answer to the alternative to that must be making sure that people who are disabled have got access to getting diagnoses, to good health care that helps them and supports them through their education, through their childhood. And then that is what will prevent crime and, you know, these pathways that young people go down when they have literally no support in their life. So what steps? So there'll be like lots of different little pieces to that policy piece. It will be things like proper diagnoses of disabilities, proper healthcare to support those young people with those disabilities, access to education, making sure that when kids go to school, they're not exempted for playing up because they're disabled, making sure that families have livable incomes and benefits so that they're not having to trade off, you know, uniforms for healthy food. You know, it's like that holistic view of what any child in this country needs to live a decent life, where they don't even look, they're not even tempted by crime or doing something naughty, because they have got all of their basic needs covered. That's the kind of basis of that.
It sounds like it's I was going to say cradle to grave, but if you're in utero, it's pre-cradle to grave way of looking after the people who need it. That's amazing. And when do you have a timeline? Like, you'd like to have this out by, like, the foundation of this? When are you trying to get it done by?
I'm starting the policy piece now, and have been thinking about it for the last 3 months, but only just now after this break, having the like mental space to start being more proactive. I know that it's going to be hard to get any coverage of anything until after the budget, so hoping to launch around June, but wanting to do something in South Auckland because my late colleague Efeso Collins, he wrote his master's thesis on why young people and young brown people in South Auckland turn towards youth gangs. And so Efeso was always really passionate about like youth justice and making sure that people understand why young people might commit crime and what we can do alternatively to help them turn their lives around. And so I want to launch that policy piece in South Auckland, where I was born as well, and kind of commemorate his life and his expertise that he dedicated a big chunk of his life to as well. So that's that for now, but I'm real looking forward to it, because we can't just be criticizing and attacking the government all the time. We actually have to be preparing things so that when we are in government, we can put them in place quickly and not waste all our time doing policy work when we're in government.
Nice. I think Chewie's got a suggestion of where you can launch your policy from, Chewie? You want to bring that up, that image you have?
I do. I saw this on Blue Sky this afternoon, and it was a really, that's a mural of Efeso going up in South Auckland at the moment. It looks A, huge, and B, just wonderful.
Yeah,
to see that.
I believe it's being unveiled on this coming Monday, but it is Efeso's 1 year anniversary in a couple days. So, yeah, we're all feeling a little bit, just lots of different ways at the moment about that.
It's one of those things. I didn't know Efeso very well, but through sort of work and stuff did. And every time I go to my phone or I get a message or something, and I see the message that we'd had with him earlier, it's just heartbreaking. It's horrible. Yeah. It's just, and you you know, some evil bastards live till they're 104,
Oh,
creating
no.
a terrible world, and they hit the good ones too early. Hey, there's a
Rupert
couple
Murdoch's still alive. Why?
and Rupert Murdoch's alive. There's a couple of comments here for you, Tamatha, and you're okay. We'll just give these to you. They're not really questions so much. Spider Hoof just wanted to say, love your mahi. Tamatha, keep it up, superstar.
Thanks, Spider Hoof.
And we've got these other comments that are more about the thing, which we'll put later on. There was another one here as well from JC and the Pigeon Cats. Kia ora, Tamatha. I'm a Greens Branch Coco in the very blue area. We have growing memberships and see many peeps getting involved. We are proud of our MPs and love your work. Keep up the mahi. Whakamā taku.
Aw, thanks, JC.
And the Pigeon Cats. You remember them.
And the Pigeon Cats.
They're a part of this. I think that's, I mean, there's lots of, you know, other comments about what we've been talking about. They're ones that are specifically to you, though. Hey, man, thanks. What are you doing in Dunedin? Are you allowed to tell us? Or just thing?
So I'm going to the O Week here. So I'm going tomorrow at the Otago O Week and Thursday, and then I'm going to the Otago prison tomorrow afternoon to do that inspection as part of my visiting all of the prisons in New Zealand. So just that, and also love a little opportunity to spend time with my grandparents who live here in Dunners as well. So and just like on the theme of boot camps, I'm at my granddad's house at the moment, and one of the reasons why I'm really passionate about that mahi is because my granddad was in a borstal back in the 70s at the Waikato Detention Centre, and just some of the stories he told me, like as I was growing up, about those places is just like really awful. So that's kind of a bit of a why behind why I do this mahi, or one of the many reasons why I do it is because, you know, he's solid and nobody deserves to be treated like that, you know.
Yeah, and as you said in your post, makes me think of my granddad sitting in Borstal in the 70s. No food, no human contact, showered with a fire hose. He was only a kid.
Yeah.
Hey, man, thanks for joining us tonight. It's always such fun. I mean, the topic's not necessarily fun, but we appreciate you coming on and hanging out with us and feeding us with knowledge. So
always happy to come on and have a yap.
Yeah, man.
Speaking of feeding, you're in Dunedin. Have you had a cheese roll yet?
Oh, not yet, but I am definitely keen for one because they are delicious. I do rate them.
Okay, so somebody is slipping that they're not issuing them at the airport. I'm sorry. We'll look into that.
I thought you had moved from cheese rolls to the shiny fella, Chewie. Aren't you the shiny fella advocate?
We should have mentioned the shiny fella. I forgot all about him. And the other thing is, if you're not into the cheese rolls, because it's hot. Go to Patties and Cream and get an ice cream taco.
Oh, yeah.
Change your life.
I've also heard, is it the Friendly Noodle House?
Oh, yes. It's a solid
Apparently they've been highly rated. So I'm going to go and check them out tomorrow. Cool. Friendly Satay Noodle House. Yeah.
That's the one.
I'm going to go check it out.
If you're looking for a drink, head into Woof. You'll find your people there. 100%.
Oh, yeah, nice. Okay, shop, guys. Have a good night.
All right, Tamatha. We'll talk to you next time.
Thanks.
Appreciate it.